Someone in your life right now is quietly draining your energy, and you might not even realize it. Welcome back to Dark Cues, where the unseen becomes obvious.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
So I want you to just think for a second about the most exhausting person you interact with on a regular basis. You know, the one whose name pops up on your phone and you just let out this deep, involuntary sigh before you even answer it.
Oh yeah, we all know that feeling. Your body just sort of reacts before your brain does.
Exactly. But what if I told you they aren't just, like, difficult or going through a phase? What if they are actually executing a highly specific, totally predictable psychological strategy against you?
Well, that is the really uncomfortable reality we're diving into today. I mean, we tend to comfort ourselves with this idea that toxic people are obvious, right?
Right.
We picture this cartoon villain who just walks into the room, insults everyone, and practically announces their malicious intent. But the most destructive personalities, they don't wear warning labels.
They really don't.
No, because they don't want to alert your defenses. They operate entirely through camouflage.
And that camouflage is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive into the hidden dynamics of toxic personalities. The sources we've gathered for this are essentially a psychological survival guide,
That's a great way to put it.
because they break down how these manipulative individuals disguise themselves as, you know, your best friend, your new romantic partner, or even that incredibly supportive boss. They're like a Trojan horse for your mental health.
Oh,
They
100%.
look like a gift or a safe harbor, but once you bring them inside your walls, they just open up and dismantle your peace from the inside out.
The Trojan horse analogy is spot on because it captures the exact dynamic at play here. These personalities operate in the shadows of our own best traits.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they don't overpower your defenses, right? They bypass them by weaponizing your empathy, your patience, and your ingrained social politeness.
Wow, so they use our good qualities against us.
Exactly. And the objective today isn't to breed paranoia or make you view every single interaction with suspicion. It's purely about building psychological armor. We want to focus on pattern recognition so you can identify these really subtle behavioral loops and protect your mind before you get trapped.
Because once you're in that dynamic, it is incredibly difficult to escape.
It really is.
So pattern recognition is everything. And the first pattern the sources highlight completely flits our traditional understanding of a narcissist.
Right, because we typically look for that loud, boastful, center-of-the-room type.
Exactly, the one taking all the selfies. But the most successful toxic personalities actually start out by looking like victims. The literature calls this profile the covert narcissist, or the professional victim.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting. We usually associate narcissism with a demand for admiration. The covert narcissist, however, demands your pity.
Pity.
And psychologically speaking, pity is a profoundly powerful tool for camouflage. When you see someone who appears wounded or helpless or just consistently down on their luck, your mammalian caregiving circuits activate.
So it's like a biological response.
Absolutely. Evolution has wired us to soothe and accommodate the injured, and in that state, your critical thinking essentially just shuts down. You don't scrutinize the motives of someone who seems to be suffering.
That makes so much sense because the source points out this very specific and honestly mind-bending toxic loop that the covert narcissist creates once they have your sympathy.
Oh, the confrontation loop.
Yes. Let's say they do something genuinely hurtful to you, right? You gather your courage, you sit them down to confront their bad behavior, and somehow, by the end of the conversation, you are the one apologizing to them.
It is a complete inversion of reality. The moment you confront a covert narcissist, they instantly recognize a threat to their control.
So they don't take accountability.
Never. Instead of addressing your legitimate grievance, they instantly deflect by magnifying how your confrontation is making them feel.
Give me an example of what that sounds like.
They'll say things like, I can't believe you would attack me when you know how stressed I am right now, or I guess I'm just a terrible person, I can't do anything right. They manufacture this acute emotional crisis on the spot.
So they completely hijack the narrative. You walked in as the injured party looking for an apology, and suddenly you're playing the role of the comforting therapist.
Exactly. The spotlight shifts entirely to their manufactured pain. And here's the kicker. If you refuse to play that comforting role, if you actually hold your ground, they escalate to punishment.
And the source mentions the silent treatment here.
Yes. But we really have to distinguish this from someone simply needing space to cool down, which is a healthy boundary.
Right, like saying, I need an hour.
Yeah, that's healthy. The covert narcissist, though, uses silence as a form of emotional sensory deprivation.
Which is just so insidious because silence doesn't leave a visible bruise. You can't point to it and say, look what they did to me.
No, you can't. But the human brain processes social rejection, like being frozen out or ignored by someone we care about, using the exact same neural pathways it uses to process physical pain.
Wait, really? The same pathways?
The exact same ones. And the covert narcissist instinctively leverages this. They withdraw all warmth and communication to trigger a state of acute anxiety and guilt within you.
So they're literally inflicting pain.
Yes. The goal is to make the pain of that silence so unbearable that you eventually chase them, you beg for reconciliation, and effectively you erase whatever valid complaint you originally had.
Okay, hold on. I'm
Yeah.
struggling with this a bit. Because, we all have hard times. We all need a shoulder to cry on occasionally.
Oh, of course we do.
So how do you tell the difference between a friend who is genuinely going through a rough patch and a covert narcissist who is weaponizing pity? Like, where's the line?
It's all about the trajectory of the interaction over time. A genuine person who is suffering is looking for a path forward. They seek solutions, they take advice, and eventually the emotional temperature drops as they begin to heal.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the covert narcissist, conversely, uses pity as a static identity. There is never any progress. They actively resist healing because being the victim is how they extract your attention and excuse their own lack of accountability.
Wow. So if the crisis never resolves and you constantly feel managed into apologizing, you aren't providing support. You're caught in a manipulation loop.
Exactly. You are being managed.
That is heavy. So the covert narcissist manages you through these heavy, suffocating emotions. But what happens if the manipulator doesn't actually feel anything at all? What if they are operating on pure, cold math?
Now we're moving into the second profile, which is the Machiavellian Mastermind, or the chess player.
Right, and this one is chilling.
It is. This profile views human relationships strictly as a board game. Everyone else in their life is simply a pawn to be moved or sacrificed.
Just pieces on a board.
Yeah. They are highly strategic, intensely calculating, and they possess this chilling lack of genuine, effective empathy. I mean, they understand what you are feeling cognitively, but they do not care.
The sources outline their methodology, and it's basically emotional data mining. They don't start out being cruel or demanding.
No, they usually start with a charm offensive.
Right. They start by showering you with flattery.
Yeah.
They make you feel special, seen, and deeply understood.
Yeah.
But the entire purpose of this is to get you to open up and reveal your deepest insecurities.
It's an extraction process.
It's almost like they're using flattery to hack your system. They're looking for your passwords, which are your insecurities, your fears, and your secrets, and then they hold that data for ransom later.
That is a brilliant analogy, because once they have those passwords, they have root access to your nervous system. They can bypass your firewall whenever it suits them.
It feels so calculated.
It's a highly effective transactional process. And the mechanism making this work is basic neurobiology. When someone flatters us or makes us feel profoundly understood, our brains release dopamine.
Oh, of course. We love compliments.
Right, and that chemical rush actively lowers our psychological defenses. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are hardwired to trust people who make us feel good about ourselves. Flattery essentially blinds us to the extraction of our vulnerabilities.
But wait, this is where I feel like I might just become overly paranoid because, like you said, we're wired to like people who compliment us.
Yeah, it's human nature.
If a coworker tells me I did a great job on a presentation, my defenses drop. How on earth am I supposed to know if they are just being nice or if they are data mining me for a future attack?
That's a valid concern. Context and pacing are your best indicators here. A genuine compliment is usually specific to an observable action, like your presentation.
Okay.
The Machiavellian charm offensive, on the other hand, is often unearned, intense, and overly familiar way too soon. They push for rapid intimacy.
Like too much too fast.
Exactly. They want to rush past the superficial boundaries of a new friendship straight into your childhood traumas or your deepest professional fears. They do this because their core philosophy is that the end always justifies the means.
So while you think you're having this incredible, vulnerable late-night conversation with a new friend, maybe you're finally sharing your imposter syndrome at work or a deep-seated fear of abandonment. They're just taking notes.
They are meticulously cataloging your pressure points. Let's say a few months down the line, a promotion opens up and you both want it.
Oh.
That imposter syndrome you confidentially shared with them, that will suddenly be casually mentioned to your boss, framed as concern for your stress levels.
That is so underhanded.
Or, if they need to win a personal argument, that fear of abandonment will be deliberately triggered to make you panic and back down.
Yeah.
They map your internal landscape specifically so they can navigate it against you.
That is genuinely terrifying because you handed them the map. You literally gave them the ammunition.
You did, and they won't hesitate to use it.
But as scary as it is to have someone weaponize your secrets, the third profile takes it to a completely different level. Because data miners use your secrets, but this next personality weaponizes your actual reality.
Right. We're looking at the gaslighter
Yeah.
or the reality distorter.
And this one is widely recognized as one of the most dangerous forms of psychological manipulation, right?
Yes, the psychological community considers it incredibly destabilizing.
The sources define gaslighting as a constant, targeted denial of reality that makes you question your own memory, your perception, and eventually your sanity.
They have a very specific script they stick to.
Yeah, they use these exact phrases over and over. That never happened. You're imagining things. You're just being crazy and oversensitive.
It's relentless.
I tried to put myself in the shoes of someone experiencing this, and honestly, the sheer terror of it is overwhelming. How do you defend yourself when the weapon being used against you is your own memory?
Well, you've hit on exactly why it's so destructive. It threatens the absolute foundation of human consciousness. We rely entirely on our autobiographical memory to understand who we are, what is true, and how to navigate the world safely.
Right? Our memory is everything.
And gaslighting doesn't just challenge a single memory. It is a systemic erosion of your ability to trust yourself. Think of it like water dripping continuously on a stone.
It wears you down over time.
Precisely. The first time they look you in the eye and say, that never happened, you will likely push back. You know what you saw or heard. But after the 50th time, accompanied by this supreme, unyielding confidence on their part, the psychological friction becomes exhausting.
Because it's actually easier to believe that your memory is a little faulty than to believe that someone you love or someone you respect is looking you dead in the eye and lying with absolute malicious conviction.
Exactly. Human beings naturally project our own morality onto others. If you would never brazenly lie to distort someone's reality, you assume your partner or your boss wouldn't either.
That level of betrayal is almost too heavy for the brain to process.
It is. The cognitive dissonance of realizing someone is actively trying to drive you crazy is extremely painful. So, to reduce that pain, the brain starts to compromise. You start thinking, maybe I am remembering it wrong. Maybe I am just being too sensitive.
And the moment you concede that inch, they have you.
Because if you can no longer trust your own perceptions, you have to rely on theirs. That is the ultimate goal of the gaslighter, to create total dependency.
Wow.
You essentially offshore your reality testing to the very person who is abusing you. They become the sole arbiter of what is real, what is acceptable, and what actually happened.
So how do you break out of that distortion field? If your own brain is starting to compromise, what is the lifeline?
The first step is stepping out of the distortion field by identifying the script. The phrases you mentioned earlier, you're imagining things, you're being crazy, you have to realize those are not reflections of your mental state.
They're tactics.
Exactly. They are a predictable, documented strategy. When you hear those specific phrases used to shut down a conversation, you have to recognize it as a tactic, not a truth. Documenting things, keeping a journal, or confiding in a completely neutral third party can help anchor you back to objective reality.
You have to step outside the bubble they've trapped you in. Okay, so we've covered the guilt tripping of the covert narcissist, the cold calculation of the Machiavellian, and the profound mind games of the gaslighter.
All very structured forms of control.
Right. But the final profile the sources present relies on pure, unadulterated, exhausting chaos.
Ah, yes. The profile commonly known as the energy vampire, or the drama magnet.
I guarantee that as soon as I said energy vampire, every single person listening just pictured a specific person in their life.
Oh, without a doubt.
The sources describe these individuals as thriving on perpetual crisis. Every interaction with them leaves you feeling physically and emotionally depleted, like your actual life force has been drained. Going back to our intro, this is the person whose text message makes your nervous system just sink.
And that sinking feeling is actually an involuntary physiological response. Your body literally releases a microdose of cortisol because your nervous system has identified this person as a threat to your equilibrium.
Cortisol, like a stress hormone.
Exactly. The energy vampire is a chronic complainer, but we need to draw a sharp distinction here. Lots of people have negative outlooks, right?
Sure.
The defining characteristic of the energy vampire is their relationship to solutions. They will actively, aggressively reject any logical solution you offer them.
Okay, let's put this in a real-world scenario so the listener can really feel the difference. Let's say you're sitting in a coffee shop with a friend who is having a massive crisis at work.
Okay, setting the scene.
You sit there for 2 hours listening, empathizing, and you start offering actionable advice. Have you tried talking to HR, or what if you send an email documenting the issue? And to every single suggestion, they respond with, yeah, but.
Ah, the yeah, but defense.
Yeah, exactly. They shoot down every lifeline you throw. And then next week, they want to meet for coffee to complain about the exact same crisis. Are they just venting? Or is this an energy vampire feeding off us?
The active rejection of the lifeline is the absolute key indicator. When someone is simply venting, there is a natural emotional arc. They express their frustration, they feel validated by your listening, and the emotional temperature drops.
Like they take a deep breath and move on.
Right. They eventually say, thanks for letting me vent, I feel better. An energy vampire does not want the temperature to drop. They do not want to fix their problem because the problem is their currency.
Is how they pay for your attention.
Exactly. It is the only way they know how to buy your time, your attention, and your emotional labor.
So they don't actually want a life raft. They just want to pull you into the drowning water with them so they aren't thrashing around alone.
That's beautifully put. They want you to mirror their chaos. Your empathy and your frustration are essentially a fuel source for this personality type, which is why boundary setting is absolutely critical.
Because engaging with them logically just doesn't work.
It's a losing battle. You are trying to solve a practical workplace problem, but they're trying to satiate a bottomless emotional void. The harder you try to fix it, the more elaborate obstacles they will invent. The interaction only ends when you are completely depleted and have nothing left to give.
It's parasitic. You walk away with a tension headache and they walk away feeling energized.
Exactly.
So if we synthesize all of this, we are looking at 4 distinct, incredibly effective camouflage patterns. You have the covert narcissist hiding behind the mask of pity, weaponizing your instinct to care until you are apologizing for their bad behavior.
Right.
You have the Machiavellian Mastermind using flattery as a hacking tool to mine your insecurities and hold them for ransom. You have the gaslighter engaging in a systematic war on your actual reality, breaking your confidence so you depend entirely on them. And finally, you have the energy vampire using manufactured chaos to drain your empathy as a fuel source.
It paints a really daunting picture of human interaction, doesn't it?
It really does. It's kind of terrifying.
But recognizing these behavioral blueprints is the mechanism that takes away their power. They rely on your blindness. Once you see the matrix of how they operate, the camouflage just dissolves.
It really does. The overarching message from all of these sources is clear. Protecting your energy requires setting impenetrable boundaries. You have to recognize the patterns early.
And when you do spot them, you have to accept a really harsh reality.
Which is that you cannot fix these personalities. You cannot love them into being healthy, you cannot reason with them, and you certainly cannot out-empathize them. You have to remind yourself to just trust your gut instincts.
Yes, trusting that internal warning system is crucial.
When your body sighs at a text message, or your brain feels foggy after an argument, your body is trying to warn you that your boundaries are being breached.
If there is one central theme to take away from this entire deep dive, it is understanding the specific environment where these individuals thrive.
Where do they thrive?
They flourish exclusively in the shadows of our politeness. They count on the fact that you will feel too awkward to walk away from a conversation. They bank on your deep-seated desire to be seen as a good, supportive person, to keep you locked in a toxic dynamic.
They weaponize our best traits against us, which brings us right back to that Trojan Horse analogy from the beginning. We open the gates and let them in because we are trying to be kind. We are trying to be hospitable and understanding. We don't want to be the bad guy.
And since these toxic profiles rely entirely on your willingness to be empathetic and polite, perhaps the most radical act of self-care you can practice is learning to be completely comfortable with being considered unhelpful or impolite by the wrong people.
That is an incredibly powerful thought to end on. If you found this survival guide helpful, make sure to subscribe to Dark Cues, hit the like button, and let us know in the comments below. Have you ever dealt with any of these toxic personalities?